Hey everybody, this is Wolf Den Podcast, episode 2. I'm your host, Automan. I'm here with my friend Frenchie today, and we've been a little late getting these episodes out. Frenchie's been having some issues with power outages and the heat wave and scheduling issues, but we promise that in the coming weeks, we're going to be getting these videos out on a more timely basis. So that way we are talking about Star Wars content, and we are talking about Bad Batch episodes as they come out, and there isn't as much of a delay. We can dive right into what we see in the episodes and what we think is coming out along in the future. But without waiting any longer, we're going to get right into this episode today, starting with Frenchie.
I do want to bring up this Anakin thing though. As far as like Anakin being the chosen one, I do just want to bring that up to the viewers, see what they think, because I don't know. A lot, like, I literally just read this. After Anakin supposedly balanced the Force in Return of the Jedi, his ghost later had to ask Rey to bring the balance back in Rise of Skywalker. So who is the chosen one? George Lucas says it's Anakin. Which, that right there, George Lucas says it's Anakin, implies to me that, regardless of what people think, it's motherfucking Anakin. Like, George Lucas wrote this shit, it's fucking Anakin.
Yeah,
and it says the Rise of Skywalker implies Rey. In Rebels, to think it was Luke, which I understand. Luke, in a sense, in that era, was quote unquote the chosen one, but he was only the chosen one to bring Anakin back. He wasn't the chosen one to bring balance to the Force. If that makes sense.
Well, I think the whole Luke thing. Well, the whole Luke thing was like, because since Episode 4 was the first movie to come out, is you're meant to believe that Luke is the savior. Right, and then that's the whole plot twist at the end where everyone's like, yo, Vader threw him off the thing. It was him the whole time, right? And then you get the prequels and then you see the origin story and then how it all makes sense. Like, yeah, so it really wasn't Luke, right? It was... And plus, George Lucas didn't intend the sequels to go the way they did. So if he says Anakin's the chosen one, he's the chosen one. Like, if he had a chance to write his own sequels, which there are rumors that he might, then we might see, like how because he wants to incorporate the wills and everything like that, so we might actually get the real story for how he intended his sequels to end. So, and it's not like, how many times has the freaking universe fallen out of order, right? How many times has the galaxy fallen out of order? So for Rey to bring balance again, it's like, okay, yeah, it doesn't make her the chosen one. It just, for her era, that just makes her the one who
right.
And we have to remember what Anakin did. It's like Rey did not accomplish any of the feats that Anakin did. Anakin mastered the light side, destroyed the light side of the Force, went to the dark side, mastered the dark side, and then destroyed the dark side. He was literally like a weird version of Darth Revan or something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say he kind of almost pulls a Darth Revan in a sense, but obviously different purposes behind it. But yeah, he kind of almost pulls a Darth Revan. He plays flip-flop. He's like, I'm gonna be on Jedi today, and then he fucking tries to save his wife, and he's like, you know what, I'm dark side, and I'm gonna kill Mace Windu because he's a jackass and didn't make me master.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've just been reading excerpts from this book, Skywalker: A Family at War. Apparently this book that was written by Kristen Baver, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Apparently it's like a in-universe document, so like it's complete with a historian looking back on these events with the fresh eye of a historian. So like it's almost like a Star Wars historian is talking about the events of Star Wars. And like it talks about if Qui-Gon had survived and Maul was vanquished, Anakin would have been raised under the watchful, calm tutelage of a seasoned teacher. Qui-Gon, and it talks about how if Qui-Gon was Anakin's teacher, it's possible that Shmi could have survived. Maybe they would have even went back to Tatooine, like Anakin talks about, and frees all the slaves. Qui-Gon also didn't uphold with the Jedi Code as strict as Obi-Wan did, and they talk about how that would have been a different scope for Anakin to be taught under, and it could have saved Anakin from going to the dark side. But at the same time, being the chosen one in the prophecy, Anakin would have had to have turned to the dark side. per se. In some way, he would have had to turn to the dark side, in my opinion, for him to complete the Chosen One prophecy. Because if he were to have stayed a Jedi and just killed the Emperor in Revenge of the Sith and never joined him, then there would be no Sith, because he killed Dooku. Grievous wasn't a Sith. Ventress doesn't really exist at this point anymore.
I mean, yeah, they're still dark side users, but I think just the point being like the two dogmatic main religions. It's like the three main Abrahamic religions of our world, right? Like they all pretty much have the same amount of people. There's almost like a balance to it.
Right. So if he had killed the Emperor, he killed Dooku already. So if he had killed the Emperor but stayed a Jedi, he wouldn't have brought balance to the Force, because the Force would have been pure light. Besides, you got the dark side users, but they weren't Sith Lord and Sith apprentices.
Yeah, well, all the Jedi that would have died probably wouldn't have died, or not as many of them, and yeah.
I mean, haven't you heard that none of the Jedi died in Order 66?
Oh yeah, yeah. So none of the Jedi. Yeah. So Windu's coming back. Ahsoka lived, of course. And then of course Obi-Wan and Yoda lived, and then Caleb Dune lived. Doom, not Dune. Doom. Caleb Doom. Who else freaking lived? Oh yeah, of course Grogu lived. Oh, the dude from Fallen Order lived. Who else, Frenchie?
I'm trying to think, because they just brought that other character back or that other Jedi back.
Well, wait. Well, then there was who was the librarian? What was her name?
Yeah. Let me look it up.
She was killed later on when the Imperials went back to the temple. She was alive. That was in the Vader comics.
Jocasta Nu.
Yeah, Jocasta. Yeah, so she was killed later on in the Vader comics. So she technically, she survived the initial purge.
Yeah, Vader had to go in and kill her himself, and that's when Fox dies too, right? He kills Fox
around the same time, because like there's that whole arc in the Vader comics where he goes to the temple and like a whole bunch of shit happens, and one of the things is freaking Fox gave him some lip and he died.
Yeah, they shot at him, and then like Fox gives him lip, and then he kills Fox. But he never liked Fox anyway, so
yeah, he was like, you remember that time you didn't let me see Ahsoka in prison? I can finally kill you because of that now.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to at the time.
Oh, 100%. 100%. If he wanted to, he would have just killed every single clone in that facility and broke Ahsoka out, but...
And listened to Fives. He would have listened to Fives.
Yeah, he would have listened to Fives.
The thing about the Fives arc that just bothers me is, like, if he just didn't give the whole background, like, and he had just said it, it's kind of like that thing that you see in TV shows where, like, oh, just say it. Just say what you need to say, you know what I mean? But he's like, there's a conspiracy. I know it. I can prove it. It's like, what is it, bro? What's the conspiracy? Like, just say it.
Especially because, like, he knew that they were closing in on him. He knew he didn't have time. He didn't have time to be, beating around the bush.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All he literally had to say was, like, he's like look at, like, do it, like Rex said, where he was like, find Fives. It's like, just look into the chips. The chips are the key. They mean something. There's a conspiracy. Like, and then of course all the clones. When he mentions in the nightmares how all the clones like pause because they're like, shit. Like, other people have that too. Like,
right.
So it's like, yo, it's the nightmares. It's the mission. Talk about the mission. We're like, well, what's the mission? It's like, we always have this dream of killing the Jedi. Like, we don't know what it means. Like, it's almost like it's been like built into us somehow.
Yeah. Crazy thing also that just came up was the whole Slave One. I know this is jumping around a bit, but Slave One, bro, because it just came up on my Instagram again.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here scrolling through my Instagram looking to see for Star Wars content. It just came up on my shit again. The Slave One is no longer Slave One because it's deemed racist. It's been called Slave One since episode 5 came out.
I think even since before then, because wasn't there like a thing? Because we first see Boba in like in that one cartoon special right before the movie.
Oh, that's right.
And I think like in that comic, well, because I think there was a comic that went along with it, but I think Slave One was mentioned, you know, in his origin story before we even see it in the movie. Anakin, I mean, he was a slave, right? Like that was never wrong. Like slavery exists in the Star Wars universe, like, and it existed in our world too. It actually still does. So it has nothing to do with like a race thing or like political correctness. I don't understand that. And then so the model of his ship is a KSE fire spray, right? The company is KSE. I don't know what the abbreviations stand for, but it's a KSE fire spray, right? So they didn't even call it like Boba's KSE fire spray, which I think would have also brought light to like the model of the ship if some people didn't know like that it has a name, right? Because it's cool. It's kind of cool to know. I've always thought it's cool to know that when you see a ship or a weapon in Star Wars, you can actually know the manufacturer. Like say, for example, that luxury yacht that we saw. So when Obi-Wan Kenobi was undercover as Gino Hardin, and then he was with Cad Bane, and they got that luxury yacht. I mean, that's made by Sorosub. So it's a Sorosub luxury yacht, but you might not know that. And then there's Zerka Corporation and KSE, Coat Drive Yards, right? But it's just Boba Fett's starship. They didn't even make it like a new name. Like, I mean, dude, like it's like seafaring ships. It's a curse, man. Like if you don't name your ship, you gotta name your ship. You know, every ship has its name. Like, so they didn't even try. They didn't even put the effort in to give it a new name. It's just Boba Fett's starship.
And so what's crazy about that it's Boba Fett's starship, right? So now, Attack of the Clones, is it Boba Fett's starship? Because it's the same fucking ship.
Yeah, you're right. So yeah, it was Jango's ship.
So, is it Jango's starship in Attack of the Clones? Or is it Boba's starship in Attack of the Clones? It's only racist if you make it racist. Just saying the word slave doesn't make it racist. That's like saying that Anakin was no longer a slave, he was just a random boy on Tatooine that they ran into, because that's racist to call him a slave. That's part of
that doesn't make any
slavery.
sense.
Literally, the imperial doctrine of the old Sith Empire was built on freaking slaves.
The other thing too is like you even see that in the Zygerian slave arc in Clone Wars, where Palpatine was like we want to continue the tradition of using slaves because that's what evil people do, man. They enslave people.
100%. And to answer the two questions, the first time that it is called Slave One is in, or like mentioned as Slave One is in Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
It was probably seen before then, but we just didn't know what it was called.
Sure.
And then to answer the other question of what KSE is, we're dumb. It's Quad Systems Engineering.
Oh, it is Coat Systems. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. So that makes sense. But yeah, but I knew, it's the whoever made it, it's the KSE fire spray. So.
Right. And it's just fire spray 31 class patrol and attack craft. And like if they really want to get rid of it that bad, they could have just called it what it is. It's a fire spray class starship.
Yeah.
Not Boba's starship.
Yeah, like Boba. Well, they could say, depending on, because they were doing this for like the toys and the Legos. So I guess depending on if it was Jango's or Boba's, they could say like Boba's fire spray, right?
Right.
Next, me.
Like when you hit the Umbara arc, that shit gets dark. It gets dark quick. Obviously, it still has the quote-unquote kid show mentality, but it gets dark. And then, like, when, what is it, season 7, when season 7 dropped, bro, and the Mandalorian War, or the Mandalorian Siege, and Order 66, and all that, and, like, and then when they bury the clones at the end of season 7, like...
That's some big feels, man.
Yeah, Star Wars isn't meant to be mushy-gushy freaking, I'm going to show this to my 6-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, it has plenty of that already. Like we've been wanting to have the more like the grittier stuff because we like other people like we want it to appeal. Like a lot of people, grew up with this, and we want it to. So we're grown up now, and we want it to appeal to us. So how does it relate to us? And that's not to say like just because we're older, we need things to be dark and depressing. But it's like there needs to be conflict, right? Like we want to see like a greater conflict that takes some like a little bit more maturity to digest.
If they made a movie, this is just throwing out my own, like, what I want in a movie for Star Wars. That isn't Skyline. That isn't Skywalker freaking based. Put me in the view of a freaking grunt company from the Imperial freaking army. Boots on the ground. Let me see them on some freaking alien planet. Like the freaking scene from Solo when they're on Nimbom. Show me that. Show me the nitty gritty down in the freaking pits. Show me that. And you know what? If the Empire murders the entire alien race, so what? The good guys don't always have to win. Like, and that's the one main key that so many people are so afraid to even watch a movie if there's even a hint that the good guys aren't going to win. I don't care. I want a good movie. If the bad guys win, so be it.
Yeah, I mean...
I'm going to use an Obi-Wan quote real quick. It's all from a certain point of view. To you guys, the Empire's bad. To me, the Empire's good. That's just, you know what I mean? And no, I'm not saying that I think the Empire's good. I'm just using it as an example. But
well, you root for the Empire. Like it's like the Empire's like cool. Well, yeah. Well, I think we get a little taste of what it's like for the good guys to lose in season 7, right? Because the like in the grand scheme of things, the good guys win, but the good guys had to lose first, like Order 66, right? So we see what it's like finally, like for the protagonists to actually like be put through the ringer and have a bad ending.
Yeah, and then you kind of also see it in the season 8, episode 8's Bad Batch. At the end, because like they escape Crosshair, and you're like, all right, they're gonna get to their ship. It's gonna be another day on Paradise. They're gonna escape like always. They escaped, but they lost Omega because Cad Bane showed up. It's a smaller victory for the bad guys, but it's a victory nonetheless.
Yeah, it shows that they're not perfect, but
right.
Yeah.
Granted, they did get her back in the next episode, but that's not the point.
Yeah, a lot sooner than we thought, because we thought they were gonna have to go to Camino and.
They were gonna go to Camino. Yep.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I'm excited for episode 10, and when we talk about that later on in the week. But with that being said, that gives us more lean towards the Camino Rebellion that we were talking about in our last podcast, because now they're on the run. Cad Bane's definitely gonna go after them. We're now at episode 10. When we do the next podcast for Bad Batch, we'll be at episode 10. So that leaves 6 episodes? Yeah, that leaves 6 episodes for season 1. If it's the only season, then we'll just say for Bad Batch. But for season 1, for all intents and purposes, we'll say season 1. So that leaves 6 episodes for season 1. The episodes are about 24 minutes long, roughly, with the intro, and then you got like 6.5 fucking minutes of credits, which I wish they changed that. But
yeah,
whatever.
And you have to think that also just that they might do another like hour episode for the finale, but continue.
Right, they probably will. So we'll say they have 5 episodes of 24 minutes long. They can't squeeze without ruining the story too much into the episodes, because I feel like they kind of tried to do that in the last episode. Like
you mean like Rush?
Right. Like they were trying to put too much information on the screen in a short time, because they make their episodes so damn short, and I wish they'd fucking stop doing that. But it is what it is. Disney, that's what they like to do. They like to make you keep coming back for more goddamn fucking content. Just give me what I want. Not asking for much. But yeah, so I feel like we're leaning closer and closer to the Camino Rebellion. And then we'll talk about this more, but I literally am just dragging myself into this rant here. But you see the Camino, or the mining, or not the mining, the freaking cloning facility, and it's not on Camino, and you're like, oh shit, they have more than one. So they could have a secret fucking clone army that we don't know about. So it brings up that possibility as well.
Yeah, you think that their contingency plan would either be in some city on Camino that isn't, is hidden, but also that, maybe it's underwater, or like you said, on another planet, because they had some other cloning program on that other planet, which, since it's rotted away, it was obviously an earlier iteration of, and it's remains to be seen if that was like their first attempt or just an attempt that got abandoned, right? We don't know if that was like, if they chalked it up as a failure necessarily, or if it was just like one that never came to full fruition and they just abandoned it for whatever reason. We'll talk about that in the next episodes, but yeah.
I do want to I'm trying to backtrack through all the shit I just searched, because I do want to talk about some of these Star Wars companies, because it's so cool. It's so cool to me that they've gone so in depth. Because you gotta think about it, like KSE Firespray, for example, right? That was a modeled ship built by a company, and they threw that all into canon through the movies. Because like in the movie, obviously it's the Slave 1, but it's a KSE Firespray 31, and it has an entire background behind it, and like then you got an entire story on the KSE, and like, you know what I mean, like these companies were made up, and then they get a backstory, and they get, this is who runs them, and this is where it's at, and like I just find that so fascinating, and I don't know, maybe I'm just a nerd for that.
No, I'm the same way too. I like,
so fascinating that.
Yeah, I like to know, like I said, like with different weapons, I'd like to know, like who made certain stuff, and then you learn the histories as well. Like when you play Star Wars Old Republic, like Zerka Corporation, like it's almost like a lot of these corporations, or like take for example, so Mitsubishi, right? Like we know Mitsubishi as a car dealership, but like they used to make, but during World War II, they made plane engines, they made weapons. I think Mitsubishi still makes weapons, or there's a car, like there's some company that still makes weapons. Right, like they were making everything, and Zerka, like that's the same way. Or if anyone's familiar with Escape from Tarkov, like so if anyone knows Terra Group, it's the same thing. They make pharmaceuticals for both like normal usage and warfare, right? So Zerka Corporation was obviously making stims, weapons. If you go to the Huttball arena, they made all like the traps for Huttball and all that stuff. Armors, I mean everything. They make everything. So
yeah. And then like I'm gonna bring up one of my favorite starships real quick. They're starfighters real quick. The TX-65B X-Wing Starfighter was made by a company. And that company is Incom Corporation. Now if I go to Incom, primary role, starfighter manufacturer. Major oh my god, I cannot talk. I've been like on a stuttering rampage this past couple days. Major productions, the clone version of the Z95 Headhunter, the ARC 170, favorite freaking starfighter ever, even though it's more of a freaking bomber, but we'll call it a starfighter. The U-Wing, both variants, T-16 Skyhopper, the T-47 Airspeeder, the X-Wing, the X-4 gunship, the Y-85 Titan dropship, and there's more, but those are the main ones that they made. They were like ingenious with their snub fighter designs, and it's so cool to me that you're like, oh, that's an X-Wing, and then you can go in to the Incom Corporation and actually read about the X-Wing and read about Incom. Like there's a whole history, and there's a there's a list of like when it has appeared in Star Wars lore or when it's appeared in the TV show. Like here, I'll go to appearances real quick. It appears in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Star Wars books. And then it appears in 1, 2, 3 Star Wars games. And then it appears in 1, 2, 2 audiobooks. Yeah, 2 audiobooks. And then it appears in little like reverbs from like Star Wars actors and content creators. So it's just like baffling to me that they took the time to do this, and now you got Disney that's like, nah, we're just gonna call it Boba Fett Starfighter. Like, where's the creativity? There's none.
Yeah, like literally just like even just give it another name. It's almost like it's accentuating the issue of political correctness by not giving it another name.
Right.
It's like you're literally highlighting the fact that you're being dumb about it by not giving it another name.
Yeah, 100%. Like, if you want to change the name, I personally, as long as it's still in the Star Wars universe, I wouldn't be like, oh, you changed it from Slave 1 to freaking, and now it's just the class of Starfighter. I mean, I would be like, you're ridiculous, but okay, you're at least keeping it to the Starfighter name. They probably called it Boba Starfighter because they honestly probably didn't fucking know the goddamn.
They didn't know it was a KSE fire spray.
Right.
Yeah, the people
who
probably
didn't know.
The people making the decisions. Oh, dude, I see. I'm scrolling through Facebook right now, and I just came across this. So it's a Lego, Slave 1. And somebody was like, this has the potential to be one of our more controversial topics. This is Dork Wars, the podcast. And they're saying, so this has the potential to be one of our more controversial topics. What do you think about the Disney ditching the Slave 1 name? Is Disney making a good, culturally aware, aka woke, they didn't say the aka part, I'm just saying that, by distancing themselves from the name, or is the name of the ship just a name that is not associated with historical implications? Of course it's not. It's not that until you make it that, right?
Right.
That's just something like I don't understand. Like, people don't understand. Like, it's sort of like things that we see today with certain things, just they're just not that until you make it that. But they think that they're being deep and woke because they thought of a scenario in which, oh, like, we can put 2 and 2 together and this makes sense. Like, yeah, on paper, but not in reality. Like, a million things that make sense on paper that don't make sense in reality. Like,
yeah, like that. So there's that meme that it's Padme talking to Anakin in episode 1, and she's like, so you're a slave? And then it has I'm gonna say it has Boba Starfighter.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm a starfighter. Like, every time I see that, I just chuckle a little because I'm like, I'm so glad that the Star Wars universe and community sees what Disney's doing, and they're just making a freaking mockery of Disney, and they just think it's a big joke.
Next time you see that meme, I have to save it too, because I want to include that like as a picture in the podcast, because that was a really that's a funny meme. I'll see if I can find it.
All right.
So what else? All right, so we covered that quite a bit. What was the other thing? Weren't we talking about something else like as well before the
Yeah, we were talking about the freaking them bringing Mace Windu back because.
Oh yeah, let's bring up that article.
All got cut in half. Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, why don't? Yeah, you explain it because you were explaining it really well. So I'm gonna give this part to you.
So before we got started recording this podcast, I was just kind of scrolling through different like Star Wars theories and like possible bringbacks, and it said Mace Windu is 100% alive, and I was like, no, he's not. He literally got electrocuted by Palpatine and chucked out the fucking window on Coruscant, which if you ever watched anything involving Star Wars and Coruscant is massive, and where the Chancellor's office is way up there. Like,
yeah,
I get he's Mace Windu, But
and we get that Anakin, would jump on purpose, but like you gotta think, like, bro, you just got electrocuted by a freaking psychopathic Sith Lord, like you're gonna be out of it. And what if what if a ship hit him, right? Like, because if he's not actively trying to avoid the ships that he's falling past, like he could have easily just gotten absolutely ruined by a ship. Like, could you imagine that you're just driving and you're like, oh yeah, Windu.
Yeah. So anyway, I click on this article, right? And it says, death is rarely permanent in the Star Wars universe. Whether they reappear as a Force ghost, or in Ahsoka's case, get pulled to safety in the world between worlds. Characters have a habit of coming back unexpectedly in a galaxy far, far away. In fact, the Star Wars trope of someone turning up alive after seemingly falling to their death dictates that Jedi Master Windu probably survived his battle with Darth Sidious and Revenge of the Sith. And I was like, okay, and I start reading this. And they say that fall might have killed an ordinary person, but powerful Force users like Mace Windu have found a way to survive far worse in the past. For instance, Darth Maul got chopped in half during his battle with Obi-Wan Kenobi in The Phantom Menace and went tumbling down a massive shaft, only to survive by using his will and hatred to tap into the dark side. Okay. Stop. Yes, that is how Maul survived. I get Windu has the ability to tap into his inner dark side, because that's how he duels. The powerful of a dark side user you are, the powerful he is in a duel. I get that. But he uses that ability only when he's dueling. So
but and it's not his dark side he's tapping into. He's tapping into their dark side.
Right. So to even compare those two is not the same. The Sith, when it comes to their dark side abilities, is crazy. If you are strong with hatred, you can survive damn near anything. It's just weird like that. That's how the Sith are. That's how it's always been. Like, even before the movies were a thing. Or, let me rephrase that. Before the prequels were a thing. And then I continue reading, and it says, Maul isn't the only one who miraculously came back after falling great distance. Sidious was thrown down a shaft and hit the Death Star 2's reactor, yet was able to preserve his spirit and return in a clone body. Again, you're using a freaking Darkseid user as an example. And he had this cloning facility set up way before his freaking death on Death Star 2.
And keep in mind, and we can keep in mind, because when he was thrown off that ledge, to my knowledge, George Lucas wasn't going to have him come back. But he might have, but it was going to be not in the way that it happened that we saw in the sequels, or at least in a different way, right? Because in the sequels, they mention, it's dark science and blah, 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 but they didn't specifically use the terminology Sith alchemy, which is exactly what it was.
Right.
So continue.
Okay, and it says, Luke Skywalker had it easier when he dropped himself down a shaft in Cloud City, but he too made it out alive. Yeah, luckily, that's not even close to the same.
Yeah, it's because he didn't hit the ground full speed, bro. The little vent opened up and it was like, Roop! And he went down and he was like, oh, I'm on a little slide now. Like, he didn't hit the ground full speed.
All right, these next two killed. These next two is what just absolutely did it in for me.
Yeah, this is what made me scream.
This says even Obi-Wan survived when Sidious issued Order 66, and Commander Cody's clone troopers shot the Jedi Master off a great height on Utapau. Okay, first off, Obi directly hit with that ATTE round, because if he did, he would have been fucking obliterated. I don't give a shit who you are. You get hit with those rounds directly, you're done. You're dunskies. It hit the ledge collapsed, he went down. Right? On top of that, he hit water. That is a survivable fall for a Jedi Master. Plain and simple. So that's a dumb comparison. The main exception is Han Solo, who died when Kylo Ren stabbed him with his lightsaber, fell to his death on Starkiller Base. Though technically, okay, no, this is not technically. He didn't come back to fucking life. He did return when Kylo had a vision of him on Kef Bir. It was a vision. He didn't come back to life. There's no technically. A vision does not count as coming back from the dead. And Han Solo also is not a goddamn Force user, so you can't use that as an example on why Mace Windu survived. It's not the same.
Yeah. Well, then they're like, well, like death isn't permanent because they come back as a Force ghost. Dude, they're still dead. Like, what do you mean? They're like, right. Oh, like so and so came back as a Force ghost. Like, bro, they're still dead. I don't know what you want. You can come back as a Force ghost all you want. You're not alive, dude. Like, you died. Freaking Obi-Wan got his head chopped off and turned into nothing. Like, or yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, he's dead, bro. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
And then they try and use this as a, oh, and then this one killed me too. This specific Star Wars trope recently reappeared in Mandalorian when Boba Fett showed up after somehow surviving his fall in the Sarlacc pit in Return of the Jedi.
And they're counting that as a fall, bro. Like, dude, like he fell into a sand pit, said ow, and then he got sucked up by it. And like people don't even realize. So the thing with Darth Maul, right? And then the thing with Boba Fett in Legends, they always survived. That was always the plan. That was always George Lucas's plan. Like, and then that was like in Legends, right? Because the way Darth Maul originally died in Legends was he came back to try assassinate. Like he was one of Palpatine's assassination attempts on Vader, and then Vader killed Maul. And this is like hella old. Like this story is so old.
Yep.
And then yeah,
it used to be in a book.
Yeah, well, I think it was a comic.
Yes.
Could have been in the book as well, but it wasn't. It was yeah, because it wasn't like I know it was in a comic. So,
Yeah, and the Boba thing, like you were saying, was in Legends, and I believe he had a thermal debt on him, and he blew his way out of the Sarlacc.
Yeah, and I mean
that's how he did it.
I mean, plus we all know that Mandalorians are like literally head to toe with weapons. I mean, they literally have. We saw in the Mandalorian use the rockets that are on his knee armor. Like, yeah, like they're literally head to toe in weapons. It's unfair.
Yeah, that's literally why Mandalorians are so good at killing Jedi, because they're so packed with weapons that they just have every advantage in every way. And 90% of the time, they use weapons that Jedi can't block with their lightsaber.
Like fire.
So that leaves, right. Like, you can't block, the only way you can block fire is if you're a strong Force user.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what we never see. We never see anyone use Force fire, because that is a thing. You literally turn into a firebender. Like, and it's OP, because again, it's like, how do you block that? If you like I'm sure there's plenty of ways to block it, but if it's like, I mean, it's such a sudden thing. Imagine fighting someone and then just pocket fire. Like,
pocket sand. I hate sand. But then they continue to try and convince us that Windu survived his fall, and then they say in Mandalorian chapter 13, the Jedi. That's the name of the episode. When Ahsoka communicated with Grogu through the Force and learned that some unknown person rescued him from the Jedi Temple after Order 66, they say that should that person prove to be Windu, there's a strong chance he also sensed Grogu when he reached out through the Force on Tython and will show up in a future episode of The Mandalorian. That's just... It just baffles my mind. Like, just leave him dead. They keep bringing all these characters back. Like, so when they brought Ahsoka back in Rebels, after she was killed or deemed killed by Vader, I thought that was a little dumb, because what she does after that is like non-existent. She pretty much doesn't exist. She shows up in a couple episodes, and then she shows up at the end of Rebels to go find
Ezra.
Thank you. Jesus, can't. I'm sure Ezra is fucking alive too. I guarantee you. Him and Thrawn, because heaven forbid if we kill off any freaking Star Wars characters these days.
Well, you got to think like Thrawn. If we're gonna keep doing the thing where we take Legends into canon, well, Thrawn existed well after the Empire fell, the second Death Star, right? Like, because I don't think we're gonna see like the Zan Consortium ever exist. But Thrawn was alive during the Zan Consortium era after the second Death Star fell. So, like, Thrawn was hella alive for a long time.
Yeah, so if
Oh, of course he's alive. No, I'm stupid. They said it in The Mandalorian, remember? Remember, Ahsoka was like, yeah, duh.
You're right. So yeah, he's
That's
alive.
who Ahsoka was looking for.
I could go on forever because it's just Star Wars is such a rabbit hole. Like I could literally click on this Wikipedia page right here that says Stormtrooper, and it's gonna bring something up that I can start talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. We're ending it because now I'm seeing stuff that I want to talk about. Yep.
Like we found another cave. We found another cave in Minecraft.
Yeah, man. Like, God.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is podcast 2 of the Wolf Den. This is Frenchie from Frenchie's World signing out. I'll talk to you guys on the next one.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us. We're going to leave a link to Frenchie's World. He's continuing his Empire at War campaign. Thanks for listening to our BS rants, and hope to see you on the next one.